experience a life-changing event, whether for themselves or for a loved one. What was your thought process like? Were you scared, anxious, nervous, depressed? Maybe you're thinking, why them? Or why me? What did you do to finally come to acceptance with this event? Well, at just 9.5 years of age, I had my life-changing event. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Here's a picture of me, December 2016. I was a happy child who enjoyed eating a lot. There's a picture of me, March 2017. Between the two pictures, you might be able to tell that I lost a significant amount of weight. Around mid-Aprilish of that same year, I wasn't feeling myself. I complained to my mother, who brought me to my physician. They ran some tests, and it turned out that I had type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a condition where the body's pancreas is unable to make insulin for itself. Thus, the blood glucose levels spiral out of control. Prior to diagnosis, I had a plethora of symptoms. I was dehydrated constantly, I lost 17 pounds of weight in a month, and I was unable to sleep due to pure nausea. Now, during the diagnosis, life had thrown something at me that I couldn't quite comprehend at that age. I was put in hospital for 3 days, and during that time, doctors and nurses told my family that there's nothing we could have done to cause this condition, but that there's nothing we can do to cure it either. This was not a satisfactory answer from my parents, however. They spent hours researching and Googling about type 1 diabetes to make sure I could live as normal of a life as possible. As for me, however, I knew that my parents would be there to support me, and I knew they would have my best interests at heart. I was frustrated that this had happened over spring break, as I had other plans. But above all, I was curious as to why everyone around me was so concerned for my well-being, now more than ever before. I was naive as to my situation. My mother had always emphasized the fact that I was a normal child, a healthy child, who just happened to have type 1 diabetes. She would always say things like, Advay is here to see Dr. X. I was never referred to as the patient of this Dr. X. This, in my mind at least, reinforced the fact that I wasn't sick, I wasn't suffering, I was a normal, healthy child. Now, being a diabetic meant that I had to learn. I had to adapt. At a young age, I learned how to poke myself to test my blood sugars. I learned how to use syringes to inject myself with insulin, and I learned how to moderate my diet. I also learned that I had to identify my symptoms between when my blood sugar was too high or too low, as either could become lethal for me quickly. I had integrated so much information in such a short span of time that I remember in the 4th grade, just after I had been diagnosed, my teacher assigned a letter to write to the president, and I chose to write about lowering the cost of insulin in the US. Getting back to the diagnosis, soon after, life was almost normal. I went on biking trips with my dad, camping trips with friends, and there's a picture of me parents now. But, like I just said, life was almost normal. Although I always try and persevere, and not let diabetes stop me, it hasn't always been easy. Shortly after I'd been diagnosed, I had a hard time identifying my symptoms between when my blood sugar was too high or low. In school, this meant that I had to be pulled out of classes, sometimes for hours on end. And when I would get back to my class, my friends would always ask me questions like, where were you? What happened? Are you okay? Being a young child, I didn't know how to respond to these questions. I didn't know what to say. This was a very real struggle for me in the beginning. And even today, I continue to have setbacks. Just last fall, when I was running a 5K race for my school, I felt low. But, in my mind, the race came first. I pushed my symptoms to the side and kept going forward with the race. Then, I started slowing down and shaking. But even then, the race came first, I pushed my symptoms to the side, kept going. Soon thereafter, I started zoning in and out of reality, in the middle of a race. That's when I knew I had to stop. I felt so frustrated that I couldn't complete this race. I thought that running wasn't for me as a type 1 diabetic. I thought that I wouldn't be able to compete with my non-diabetic counterparts. But after some thought, I realized that I wasn't going to let one bad race ruin it all for me. It was this new mentality and this new mindset that allowed me to complete my first half marathon last October. And another instance like this occurred at a debate tournament. I was in the middle of a round, giving a speech and all that, and I fell low. I didn't realize I had the symptoms for it, as I was too focused on the round. And my mom came into the room, bursting through the door, and handed me a juice box. I felt so embarrassed at that moment, I was nearly moved to tears. Luckily, the judge was okay with it, and I managed to qualify for states in that tournament. And even today, I continue to persevere. There's a picture of me receiving the Scholars Book of World Record for contributing to the largest collection of youth anthology. There's a picture of me at a race with over 200 runners. There's a picture of me at a state debate tournament. And there's a picture of me giving a speech about youth empowerment. If there's one thing you should take away from this talk, it's that quick acceptance leads to quick adaptation. Adaptation leads to growth. And this growth is what will allow you to persevere in the face of any life challenges. It's like famed musician Simon Basil Woods always says, I know you're sad and tired, but you'll